What's going on, FE Nation? Happy Monday, and welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream for this massive 11-game slate.
Yep.
John, you were on the playbook today. A bunch of really random slate totals this week. It's like 11 today, 2 tomorrow, then 14 on Wednesday, gearing up for Thanksgiving. We're off on Thanksgiving, and then I think it's 12 or 13 again on Friday. But so we'll have a live stream today, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yep.
But John, you were the man in the playbook today. How are you feeling about it, brother?
I mean, there's a lot of really interesting matchups for sure. I love like that mid 7K range for shooting guard tonight. There's just like a lot of really awesome options. Fortunately, if you play on DraftKings, a lot of them are like shooting guard, small forward, so you can kind of maneuver yourself around there, shooting guard, point guard, and kind of fit them into a bunch of different spots. But definitely a big fan of sort of that mid range there. Center has a ton of fantastic matchups.
Right.
A lot of value also just opened up right before we jumped in there. You know, with Daniel Tice being ruled out, Robert Williams is $3,300 on DraftKings. Enes Kanter's $3,700 on DraftKings. Williams also power forward eligible, so if you even wanted to play both and maybe hope for some good fantasy point per minute production against the Kings, like that's going to save you a lot of money to spend up because, I mean, you have Karl-Anthony Towns tonight against Atlanta. Again, we'll go through all of these, but I mean, there's some really, really strong plays today.
Tonight, if you want to go play over on Super Draft, if you do want to play all these centers, that's where you go because you can play all of them. You can roster up to 4. So it might be a Super Draft night for those people looking at the center position. But let's hop in, John. We do have 11 games to break down. Let's start over at the point guard position where looking at your playbook, we have Dame Dalla, Damian Lillard up at the top in a really juicy matchup against Chicago. Under $9,000 on DK is kind of the price tag that you and I like him at,
Right.
especially with him not playing his best basketball of late. But other than Lillard, do you like anyone up at the top here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really great point guard spots tonight. I mean, there is Trae Young in the matchup against, up against Minnesota. We'd like to attack that spot, all year long. Again, he's more expensive than we're used to, but I think in cash games, he's pretty fair. Price, I know he's not in the playbook, but he's a guy, that I've looked at, as sort of a pivot GBP play. Your boy John Morant has started playing more minutes. That's all we've ever asked of him is really like play the man minutes. There's no reason you're playing a 19-year-old kid 25 minutes a night. So back-to-back high minute production from him. Fantasy points have been there. I like Philadelphia a lot tonight against Toronto. I think, they could possibly go overlooked today because of some of the strong matchups, but I think that's an interesting game. Ben Simmons went back-to-back 50 fantasy point games prior to the most recent outing, which they won by a blowout, against Miami there. So he's great. And then I'm a little bit shocked, I think, by the ownership number for Malcolm Brogdon that we have. I know 16% on an 11-game slate is pretty high, but I think he's going to be 30 or 40%, to be honest with you. He's only $6,000 on DraftKings. He's missed only 3 games, and this wasn't, we were paying over $8,000 for him, or he was priced up over $8,000 for a little bit there because of how good he was playing. So, yeah, I know there was a little bit of a layoff coming off injury. He's not expected to see any minutes restriction tonight. He's in a huge pace-up spot against Memphis. I don't know how you just don't lock and load and start every lineup today with Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah, I think he's kind of in a group of guys that are all mispriced. And obviously starting with Brogdon, and there are a couple guys at the center position, I would say, that are mispriced as well. Hint, hint, Hassan Whiteside, hint, hint, Bam Adebayo, or power forward, I guess you would consider him on FanDuel, but mispriced on DK. But Brogdon definitely, that's kind of a joke. That's kind of what we were alluding to with OG Anunoby like last week.
Yeah.
He missed one game and then went from the mid-6s under 5K. So, I mean,
he missed one game and went back down to 4,600. Isaac was the same way.
Yep.
Isaac missed like a game or two, and next thing you know, he went from 78 or mid-7s rather, all the way down to like low 6s, and it's like, why? Missed one game. So DraftKings has really been interesting with the way their algorithm has worked this year.
Two more names you have here at the point guard position. Markelle Fultz. I think we saw an increase in minutes and usage with the likes of Aaron Gordon and Nikola Vucevic out. And I think there's no reason not to think that doesn't continue. And Detroit's a team that we've loved to attack a point guard. But I definitely want to hear your take on Brad Wanamaker, because we have him currently listed as the highest owned projected player on the slate. And I mean, it's pretty much a lock on FanDuel, I would say, considering he's only $500 off the min salary. But, like, is he a lock for you on DK as well at 4,300 and not as close to min salary? I mean, and like, I guess it comes down to how many Celtics you want to play, right? Because there are elite players or elite spends like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Then there are elite values at center, whoever starts between Robert Williams and Cantor, and then there's Wanamaker. So, like, how many Celtics you want to play, and how many do you want to prioritize before Wanamaker?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Wanamaker is there's no Kemba Walker tonight.
Right.
Has played a lot of the minutes off the bench. Anyways, before Walker's injury, with Marcus Smart moving in to the shooting guard role there with Gordon Hayward injured, Wanamaker has been the primary big off the bench for them. Primary point guard rather off the bench for them, playing 25, 26, 27 minutes a night. Now there's no Kemba Walker. My question is whether or not they actually start him or not, because they do have Marcus Smart in the lineup. He is a point guard by trade. They could just easily slide him down into the point guard position and then, move in a guy like Semi Ojeleye, who Brad has started before, at power forward, and kind of shift Tatum and everybody down one in the position. I theorize they could even go with Javonte Green, who was one of the last mans on the Celtics roster, but they really liked him. He's played some minutes this year as well off the bench for them, sometimes getting early minutes off the bench. So, I mean, he's coming back from a minor injury, but, I think there's going to be a lot more value opening up potentially here already than there is with Boston. But, yeah, Wanamaker's been solid. He's a really good passer. He's been effective hitting the three ball of late as well. So, cheapy guy, probably going to get you the 5X you're looking for. But he's definitely going to give up a lot of usage to guys like Tatum and Brown, who I suspect with no Kemba now are going to take all the shots.
Let's move over to shooting guard. We did just get word DeAndre Jordan ruled out for Brooklyn. Jared Allen, 6.1K over on DK, and his price on FanDuel, 6.8K. Pretty good price tag for him.
Makes me like Thompson even more. We'll get the center, but I mean, the fact that now there's no DeAndre.
Right, and I mean, what position have we attacked on Brooklyn ad nauseum, John?
Okay. Center.
Okay, let's move on to shooting guard before we jump the gun, where we have Donovan Mitchell in a very good spot, coming off of a bunch of good games, projected at low ownership. We have guys like CJ McCollum, Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins, Spencer Dinwiddie, the list goes on.
Yeah.
This is a very, very strong position today, and it's kind of been that way for most of the season after a few seasons of shooting guards kind of just like, let's move on to the next position. Let's spend down at shooting guard. Today kind of seems like a day that we spend up at shooting guard, right, John?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it when we let off. I think that mid-tier for shooting guard is fantastic. I mean, like you said, especially on DraftKings. Obviously, in FanDuel, those guys are all priced up a little bit more. But, yeah, I'm trying to fit as many of them as I can in my lineups, taking advantage of the multiple position eligibility that some of them have. Dinwiddie, Wiggins. Wiggins wasn't part of the original playbook. Those of you in subscriber chat, saw a little back and forth. It wasn't an oversight. It's an 11-game slate. There's a lot of guys that you can write about in that spot. But I did go back and actually put him into playbook because it's just a good spot for him there against Atlanta. Allowing the most fantasy points to the shooting guard spot. So Wiggins, great, perfect. I think he can definitely be part of a lot of game stacks for that one. Then Jaylen Brown is a shooting guard, small forward. He went for 40 fantasy points the other night against Denver. We talked about Butler already going up against Charlotte. Like, that whole tier is just fantastic. Gilgeous-Alexander, not in the playbook, but a fantastic play tonight. If you want to get that late night hammer exposure against Golden State, today, if I can play all the shooting guards, I would do that for sure. You mentioned, super draft. It's also like a fantasy draft night where the double utils, the three guards, some moving forwards, like anywhere we're not really defined it to a position is in a good spot today.
Did I say super draft? And
did.
when I meant fantasy draft? Okay.
You might have, yeah. Well, you did for sure. I didn't know what you were actually meaning, but super draft's great too. Love super draft. There's probably a lot of great multipliers on those centers.
On all the centers. We'll just play all the drafts. Whatever draft you want to play, run them all. Two more just quick names to throw out there. Marcus Smart, another Celtic, probably the lowest on the priority list, just considering what we have in front of us in terms of value, in terms of Jason Tatum's usage rate, which we'll get to. But still a very good play. I think the Celtics are a very good play considering we have Sacramento back-to-back. And then Tyler Hero for value, GPP play. He can score in bunches when he gets going. Moving over to small forward, we don't need to spend much time on Giannis. I think it's a tough matchup, but it's something that I allude to. You can get him at a low ownership, and no one's going to play him. So this would be one of those situations where you want to play him in a GPP. It could take over a slate. I think LeBron against the Spurs are interesting considering how dreadful the Spurs have been defensively this year. Currently 26th in defensive rating as a team. I think that's going to go overlooked just considering we have you spend up so many plays in the slate. But, John, and John Isaac is our boy. Like, that's our boy. And the price tag at $7,900 feels too high, but it still feels like something that we want to spend on, just considering.
You went for 50 the other day. So as long as Vucevic and Gordon are out, he has a huge usage bump, and the fantasy point per minutes are there. He's a guy that we're always touting, like, hey, as long as the shot drops, then, he's going to get you there because of the production that he gives you with the blocks and steals and well, now there's nobody else shooting the basketball really. So I think it's a really good spot to go play Isaac. He is expensive, but that kept his ownership really low for me the other night. He was only 6% owned, I think it was, in the contest that I played in. And again, I don't think anybody's going to be paying that much money for him. Given Orlando plays at a slower pace, given the matchup against Detroit's not really that great. So this is another slate where you could probably go get another 45, 50 fantasy points at no ownership.
Yeah, and the shots are going to be there. They're starting Wes Iwundu and Kem Birch next to him.
Right.
Two guys that don't shoot the ball, that Orlando probably doesn't want shooting the ball.
No, they don't.
So the shot attempts will be there for Isaac.
Too. We mentioned it quickly, but 10-plus shot attempts now, 3 straight games for Fultz. The shots are just there for him. So.
Right, and shooting threes, 2 for 3 from 3 the other night, which is amazing to see. I'm really happy for the kid. I hope it really does.
Hey, that was a great trade for Orlando if that pays off.
That was it was a win-win because nothing happens if it doesn't pan out. If he's great, another building block for a pretty good core, a pretty good young nucleus to have in Orlando.
Yeah.
Only growing stronger with their draft pick currently out this year. You mentioned Jaylen Brown quickly before, but he is small forward over on FanDuel. He went for almost 50 fantasy points against Denver, against a good Denver defense. Not the same defense here in Sacramento. I think he's a very good tournament play. Probably can use him in cash games too, considering Kemba's out. And then we have Bojan, not Bogdan. Not brothers. Still not brothers.
Not related. There's no matter how much I will it, they're still not related.
Still not related. And you mentioned nobody's going to play him. And Bojan has been one of our favorite plays for the last 3 years, just consistent as ever. And then I'm interested in Carmelo here against the Bulls because the Bulls are not good defensively. And this game total is kind of sneaky. I feel like it's not getting enough love, this game as a whole.
It was almost a pick 'em. It's 220, I think, right? Or 230, something around that range for.
It is up to it's 226 currently.
Kevin Love just got ruled out, by the way.
Well, good thing we're almost at power forward.
I'm just letting you know, because now you can play all the Tristan Thompson.
So. Okay, well, all right. Well, we're at small forward, John.
I know.
So does Kevin Porter interest you at all, considering maybe there are a couple extra power forward minutes for him or a couple extra if they play small? Or Cedi Osman.
I think on FanDuel, Nance is actually a small forward.
He is very expensive over on FanDuel.
What is he on FanDuel?
His price on FanDuel, I like. He's $6,200, but that is not cheap. We're looking for 31 and a half.
57 on DraftKings. He's not really cheap as he was, but I mean,
Put over
we're
30
not
fantasy
a guy
points in
that
games.
went for what?
30 plus fantasy points in back-to-back.
Yeah.
Or
the last two games that he started, he went for 37 and 33. This is Brooklyn. Now, I feel like we get a little bit lost sometimes. Like, Brooklyn's very bad against the center position, so we try to play the power forward, and I feel like it doesn't always come through for you because center's just so dominating that the power forward doesn't really have that huge of a game. Yep, Nance officially starting. We kind of figured. It obviously doesn't always happen. Like Sabonis, I think the other day had himself a good game still against them. Playing next to he had 47 playing against Turner. So there's certainly times where it pays off for them, but I think this just reinforces Thompson for us even more.
Right.
So Nance for sure, go ahead, play him. He's going to start. You do need, was it 57 on DraftKings? What's his FanDuel?
6,200.
Yeah, 62. So you need like 31 fantasy points out of him there.
Yep.
It's doable, but it's that's kind of the high end in terms of salary. So maybe he gets you 5, maybe he gets you 6. Anything more than that, I'd be probably surprised. But, it's not terrible, especially where small forward typically sucks on FanDuel.
I agree with you in terms of solidifying Tristan Thompson minutes. I do think that opens up. I guess I just want to circle back just because Kevin Love commands so much of that team's usage. Does that put you back on to someone like Jordan Clarkson or Colin Sexton or one of the guards that take a lot of shots? Just considering we saw Clarkson. I mean, look, we're not going to get Clarkson scoring 28 actual points every night, but he is coming off a game where he scored 28 actual and played 31 minutes.
I mean,
would that interest you any more knowing that Kevin Love is out?
So yes, I do like Clarkson. He obviously got the price bump, so he's $5,200 now on DraftKings. What's his FanDuel cost?
His FanDuel cost is $4,500.
So I can live with him on FanDuel.
That's a really good price. That's a pretty good price tag for tournaments.
He's been mid-4s this whole time on DraftKings. Now he's 52, so you need 26 fantasy points out of him, which, I mean, he's definitely capable of doing because he's going to score, 14 or 15 points by himself there. I need to know the minutes are going to be there. There are times where the usage is going to be there for him. But,
right.
If this game gets away from Cleveland, which it shouldn't, it's Brooklyn. But if it does, they don't go to him. The other day, he had 22 fantasy points at halftime and finished with 23 because they got blown out in the second half. He didn't really play again. GPP darts, Clarkson works. That's fine.
1.06 fantasy points per minute without Kevin Love on the floor this year for Jordan Clarkson. Just a note. Since we were talking about Larry Nance, let's head over to the power forward position. Another very strong position on tonight's slate, especially considering Bam Adebayo still a power forward. But Anthony Davis tops the list at 11-8 and 9-7 on DraftKings. Feels a little too cheap in this matchup against the Spurs. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it does. I'm not paying for him on DraftKings. I mean, on FanDuel, but 9-7, like you said, he was over 10K the last 2 slates. So it's actually the cheapest we've had from him in the last 3 slates. And 2 of those 3, he went for over 60. So you're getting the money for him for sure. You need your 54, 56 fantasy points or whatever it comes out to there. 57 fantasy points to get your 5X. So, he can do it against LaMarcus Aldridge. LaMarcus Aldridge obviously aging, not a great defender in the first place. So sure, I still don't know if I'm going to go to AD here. Nothing against him personally. I just think that there are maybe other options to go at power forward.
Yep, tournament play for sure. I mean, some other options at power forward. We have Domantas Sabonis. Double machine in a pace-up spot. That's a great call.
Against a foul-happy Jaren Jackson. Against
an extremely foul-happy front court in general. That front court is just a disaster when it's in terms of fouls. And then we have Jason Tatum, Rashawn Holmes, Eric Paschall. Where are you going at the rest of the position, John?
I mean, obviously Tatum, again, we're talking about a guy with a lot of the usage now that there's no Kemba, there's no Hayward. You have the stat. What is he at 34%, you said?
34, yeah, and it's it's nearly an 8% bump with Kemba and Gordon Hayward off the floor.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you can go ahead and expect him to probably lead the offense in scoring, be the go-to guy. Him and Brown are going to definitely take a lot of the shots. But aside from that game against Denver where he had an off night shooting, the 2 games prior, 51 and 47 fantasy points. So, and that was with Kemba Walker on the floor with him. I think this is going to be no problem. I like it. Honestly, I like it better if Marcus Smart starts at shooting guard. At point guard, rather, because he's a really great passer. He can set up the offense. And that also takes him on the ball where he's less likely just to pull up and take shots. Where if he's a shooting guard, sometimes he gets a ball on the perimeter and he just fires away. I think keeping him at point guard could also limit the Smart shots and hopefully go to Tatum or Brown. So definitely in on Tatum. And then we mentioned the injury there. Daniel Tice is ruled out. Rashawn Holmes listed as a power forward still. The site pretty much being the starting center all season long for the Kings. He's going to go up against Robert Williams, who's a really great shot blocker, but very foul happy. And then he has Cantor, who just plays Ole defense. So, one of the two there could be really fruitful there for Holmes, who had a really strong game last night. It is the back-to-back, though, so maybe there's a little worry about the Kings on a back-to-back here.
Bam Adebayo, a power forward over on FanDuel for those interested in him there.
Great spot. We preach a lot about like who we always play against centers, and it's frustrating because there's just so many teams that are very bad against centers. So Bam is a center on DraftKings. He's a power forward only on FanDuel. For whatever reason, DraftKings only has him a center. They don't even give him a split position. He's great. The 10-point spread is the only thing that has me slightly worried, but he's the picture of the playbook for a reason. The guy has gone for 50 fantasy points twice in a couple games now. Smash spot against them. So as long as that game doesn't get blown out right away, he should still see mid-30s minutes. That's the only thing that I'm worried about is maybe it's over by halftime.
You do have Marquise Chris written down in the playbook. Do you have preference over him over Amari Spellman if Draymond is ultimately not there?
Like Chris is a better offensive player than Spellman.
Yeah.
But I also think they're both very same level of production. So, we've seen Chris obviously have high ceiling games. We haven't really ever seen that from Spellman when it is these brief limited times there, whether it was in Atlanta or now. But they're both fine. They're both sort of just like OKC isn't as good of a team as they once were. Steven Adams is still strong, but they take out Adams and they don't really have a good power forward really that's going to cause issues. Gallinari is not a great defender at all. And Noel more of a shot blocker than a defender. So, I think both of those guys are fine. They're just, late night hammer exposure plays.
Any love for Lauri Markkanen here at power forward? Just considering Portland's been so bad against power forward. It's a GPP play, but they're 28th.
It's the fact, it helps that Carmelo is also there now, but Markkanen has just been awful. So is this a spot where he could break out? Certainly. Definitely can be. If you're game stacking, he just fits. So in a game stack, go ahead. I know you like him a lot. We had someone in chat ask about him. Yeah, Markkanen's fine in a game stack for me, but if I'm making a one-off lineup, he probably doesn't get there for me.
Let's finish it up at center, John, where we have a lot, as we've alluded to the entire live stream, a lot of great plays. We have Karl-Anthony Towns in the highest total in the slate against Damon Jones and Hawks. We have Joel Embiid against the Raptors at $8,800 on DraftKings. We have Hassan Whiteside, who another player missed a couple games and is suddenly 6,100 in a spot against arguably, one of the worst front courts in basketball in terms of rebounding and just defending in Chicago. Bam, we mentioned Tristan Thompson now with Hellcat. And we have the value. And on top of that, if Rudy Gobert is eventually ruled out, we have Tony Bradley. So, how are we breaking down this position? Again, it is a loaded position, and mainly because the price tags are all so juicy on everyone.
Yeah, it's crazy because Towns is obviously the smash spot against Atlanta. He can go for 70, 80 fantasy points tonight. You wouldn't even blink if you saw it. It's a high game total. It's only a 4-point spread. They just don't have anybody to deal with him at all. So would love to pay up for Towns. But I feel like there's also the mid-tier is just also fabulous. You mentioned Tristan Thompson. He went for 40 the other day. Didn't even have a double-double in that game. We attack the Nets all the time. There's no Kevin Love now, so you know that he's locked in going to get all the rebounds for them. I mean, that's just hard to go ahead and assume.
And DeAndre Jordan, too.
Yeah, and DeAndre Jordan, right. It's all Jared Allen. So it's basically, the paper bag that's been playing center for all these years against for the Nets anyway. So, yep, he's, lock and load. We've talked about Bam already, as you said, a great spot against Charlotte. And, Whiteside, he's 6,100 is a joke. I mean, he's played now. You always are worried a little bit about the minutes with him. But, I mean, the minutes were there before missing a couple of games with a hip injury. So maybe that would be, like, the only reason why I'm off Whiteside a little bit is that he's coming back from a sore hip. He's always been a little bit wishy-washy on the minutes anyways, but this is a spot where he can absolutely dominate. Like, centers have absolutely killed the Bulls all year long. So, I mean, it's just incredible the amount of talent that's there. And then they talk about the value that opens up. Cantor is likely, I would assume, starting, but even if he does it, like, Robert Williams isn't going to play 35 minutes, and Williams is 3,300, so we didn't really talk about him yet. Cantor, a great fantasy point per minute player, over a minute per game, fantasy point per minute this year. Going up against Sacramento, Rashawn Holmes is foul happy. Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to punt tonight, Cantor is very reasonable, but I don't think you need to because there's so much value. You can probably on DraftKings, you'll throw Cantor in there to help you spend up elsewhere, but yeah, I mean, how do you go against these guys here?
Now, I have a question because if let's just play hypothetical and say Rudy Gobert is ruled out and Cantor is starting, do you go Tony Bradley against Milwaukee, or do you in a really big pace-up spot, or do you play Enes Cantor against in his matchup against Sacramento?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we saw Bradley the other night, and he played, pretty well. He got you the 26 fantasy points, had you the 14-9 against the Pelicans. But he only played 22 minutes.
Foul trouble. He picked up the fifth foul really early in the fourth quarter and had to sit out pretty much the whole quarter.
Right, but he's also a foul-happy guy. If you look at sort of the games that he's played and the limited minutes that he's in, 3 fouls in 10 minutes, 3 fouls in 12 minutes. So I mean, that's part of his game. So, I mean, if you're going to give him 22, 23 minutes, he's going to give you 3, 4, 5 fouls. So, it's just that Cantor's cheaper. So, Bradley, if Bradley's not going to be guaranteed 30-plus minutes regardless of the foul trouble, I think I'd rather play Cantor just for the offensive upside.
Also, one more question before we get out of here, John. Is Hassan Whiteside at 6.1K cash viable? No. I never thought I'd say it. No. But the ownership says he is. Do you believe he is cash viable tonight?
No. Minutes are too insecure. You don't know what he's going to play. So.
And with that, I just want to thank our producer today, Matt Sells, as always. And we have 27 minutes of the roster lock. We'll be in chat.
Lineups are being posted at Uno Momento.
Uno Momento. Thank you, John. I'll catch you guys in the winner circle.